Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Cardinals, like Ben and the movie Wicked, just keep getting less popular.
Oh my God.
My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined by my co-host Ben Samorka.
Hey, Nate.
If you have an idea for the opening bit, text or leave us a voicemail at 848-48-BIRDS. That one came to us via text message. A person out there, I don't know their name, but they've contributed a handful of times. So thank you out there for your submission. Making me work on that one. Yeah. Yeah, how you feeling, Ben?
Yeah, I was really ready to record, and all of a sudden, I feel like I don't feel like recording anymore. So, yeah, we're here. We're doing it.
We'll go ahead and shut it down. Um, well, Ben, you're alive.
That's right.
Last week the bulk of the episode was our interview with Nick. Thanks again to Nick. But if you made it all the way through that and to the part after we talked, Hambone here did his first ever half marathon at elevation in beautiful Moab.
Yeah.
I was telling everybody the podcast is coming to an end. I was making travel preparations for a funeral, but I'm glad you're seemingly you're thriving, not just surviving.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I mean, I crushed it. I think is really how I felt. I was feeling
Wow.
really shaky going into it.
Yeah.
But posted a time I'm pretty proud of. I felt really good. Like I actually enjoyed it. I had fun in the moment. And usually on these runs, it's like after the fact,
Yeah.
I'm elated that it's over, but I was having fun while doing it. It was beautiful. It was in Canyonlands in Moab, Utah. If you're not familiar with that, Google it. It's the most gorgeous place.
Google it.
Google it, bruh. The vibes were immaculate. I was killing it. Had a great little crew with my lovely wife and my doofus little brother, and yeah, had a great time.
Nice.
Ate like the most gluttonous meal I've ever had post run, which was really
All
great.
right. Let's break this down. Now we're talking. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think this is what our listeners want to hear. The most gluttonous meal. What are we talking?
I just like we went to like this towny spot in downtown, quote unquote Moab, and got this sloppy burger, French fries, all that stuff, and then we ordered. They were cream filled, deep fried, ice cream covered churros for a dessert, along with a couple of beers. So like again, it's a deep fried churro with cream inside and a scoop of ice cream on top.
It sounds quite nice.
It was really good. And I don't think I've ever had a tastier meal than that. I think because Utah is weird, there was no no
Understatement
beer.
of the
Yeah, there was like no beer or food after the race. So like, we just like got a Clementine and then hopped on the bus back to our car.
We expect you to die.
Yeah.
The Mormon way.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was great. I had a really good time.
Awesome. I think we've talked about this before on the show, but it's been a little while. The games are coming up. You're going to be spending some time in the ballpark. Are you a dessert in the stadium kind of guy? This ice cream churro is making me think about like churros at the ballpark and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about the ice cream spaghetti last year and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I will say, unless I'm going to like a day game and it's like 95, I like in those situations, I will get myself a snow cone or something like that. But I'm pretty much a savory guy with a beer.
Yeah.
Like 99 times out of 100. Like, give me a dog or a cho and like a 32-ounce Modelo, and your boy's doing great.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think just in general, probably savory over sweet, but especially at the ballpark and like seeing these people with like giant ice cream cones, this just seems unwieldy to me. Though I do like things in a collectible upside down hat,
Yeah,
so
you've also like you say that, and I've witnessed you spill nacho cheese all over yourself and have it all in your beard and everything. So like I think you make a lot of food unwieldy. So I'm just I think
I'm voracious. Okay, I do everything with heart and with intent. Okay,
that is how you
and
would describe yourself, voracious.
yes,
Okay.
ferocious,
I think of you as
velocity.
more like a robot human.
Must eat nachos, beep boop. My
I
gizmos
actually
are ran
I
by
haven't really
nacho
thought about
cheese.
it until right now. I think you're faking eating food just to appear
I'm
more
just
human.
I'm constantly doing that thing where like like you can trick a kid where it looks like you're swallowing a pencil by holding it to the side of your mouth and just putting it. I'm just actually I'm always making sure I'm completely profile to people when I'm eating because I'm just sliding things down my back, I guess.
Yeah, and you do this whole thing about pizza just as like, oh yeah, normal. A lot of people like pizza. I'm a human being. I like pizza too.
Yeah, what's your favorite topping? Sprockets?
Yeah, see, exactly. You're not even denying it at this point.
So how those footsies treating you? How those getaway sticks doing here a couple days after your 13-mile run?
So, like I said, I felt great. I felt the legs were feeling fine. I felt like I could have kept going, TBH.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is rare for me. Usually I'm like
Uh-huh.
dying, at the 10th
Yeah.
mile or whatever. But what what was maybe a mistake is that the next day, me and the squad that was staying out in Moab, we're in Moab. We're in this beautiful national park.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we keep it going? So we did the Arches, the Delicate Arch hike in Arches National Park, which is again,
St. Louis people here starting to ears perk up a little bit as you start to talk about arches. You
yeah,
may, of course, know we got a bit of an arch here in St. Louis.
yeah. So it's basically the same thing. You don't really need any more context. This is it's a 3.5 mile out and back. We have
Okay.
to park a mile away, so we add a couple of miles. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say it's 5.5 mile hike or something like that from the car to back to the car. On mile 4, my left foot starts to hurt something fierce. We're walking on the way back to the car, and we're sitting here Wednesday recording. The run was on Saturday. The hike was on Sunday. That part of my foot is still hurting. I may have a stress fracture in my foot. I'm trying to go skiing this weekend. I'm trying to live in a little bit of denial right now, but it hurts. And the more I use it, the more it hurts. So, according to the Google machine, it might be a stress
Uh-huh.
fracture. I'm kind of trying to live in denial right now, and pretend that that's not happening. But I guess we'll see how this weekend treats me. But outside of that, I feel great.
Great. Well, skiing doesn't put like an immense amount of pressure on your feet or anything, so you should be
No,
fine. That
no,
definitely won't make a potentially bad situation considerably worse. So I
it's
think you should go for it.
it's my left foot, so it's basically just a useless appendage, anyways. So,
Yeah.
we'll fight right through that.
You can, I guess, if you just only make like right turns, no, left turns, keeping your left foot on the inside. I know how skiing works, right? You should be okay. You
Yeah,
don't want any of the pressure on it.
yeah, just ski one-legged. It'll be fine.
Uh-huh. You could do one of those single like aren't there some sickos who go down on one ski?
Mono ski, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Also, snowboarders kind of do the same thing, but they use both feet, I guess.
Mm,
But
yeah.
yeah, I'll be fine. It's if anything, it's a hairline fracture. I don't even know if it would come up on an X-ray. So like, just rub
Sure,
some
yeah,
dirt
you're
on
ready.
it, keep moving.
You'll be ready for opening day. No big deal.
I hope so, because there's going to be a lot of walking on opening day. So I'm
Yeah.
really hoping that if I do have a fractured foot, that it's fine by then, because that's going to suck.
Yeah. Well, check out this segue. Speaking of opening day, Hambone, we are here.
Baseball has started. Actually, the Cubs already have 2 losses.
Yes.
Which is a kind of a fun way. Kind of seems
Uh-huh.
unfair, honestly.
Yeah.
Even though it's to the Cubs, so I don't really care. But it does seem a little weird that they are already down 0-2 on the season before anyone else has really
It's the
played
way
a
every
game.
every season should start this way. I don't
Yeah.
know. Did because they were saying on the broadcast I think it was Jed Hoyer, the Cubs guy, was saying, the Cubs guy
The Cubs
was
guy
was
This is a
saying
baseball podcast. We got
Yeah.
this.
they are done with the Dodgers, Padres, and one other team by April 29th. So I think as Cardinal fans, we really should not necessarily look at where the Cubs are sitting at the end of the April standings and say that's a true read on what their season is going to look like. Other than if they end April in a very good position, then we'll have it'll be like, okay, well, they're probably a pretty good team. But did you watch any of the two games?
No, it's way too early. No,
Yeah, it's even an hour earlier for you. I woke up yesterday. I got up at 6 a.m., which, if you know me, that is not my vibe. I am not a 6 a.m. guy, but I was so excited for baseball to start. And I just thought, you know what? I want to see some of this. I want to actually watch some of the game. So I got up at 6. I mean, the game started at 5:10 my time. So it's not like I missed the first. I came in at the third inning, and I watched the rest of the game, and it was awesome. Just I was like, yes, baseball. Today I did not. I got up at my regular time, and I caught like the very end of the game, but I did see the Cubs lose twice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I today I woke up a little earlier than I normally do. I woke up at like 7:30 or something like that. Immediately checked my phone. I was like, the game's probably still on, right? It's already over. So
Yeah.
I'll watch the highlights like tonight after dinner. I'll catch up. But yeah, just I it's what do you think of the Tokyo series? Is it good?
So the Tokyo series specifically, I thought this was great. I mean, Japan has such a history of baseball, and it is a cultural touchstone for Japan as much, and if some ways, if not more, for Japan than it is for the United States.
Like kind of per capita, it's definitely more popular in Japan.
Yeah, and much like the Rickwood game last year, and some of the other sort of just these like highlight games, a ton of the broadcast was really about the cultural impact of this series. And I don't know how many people in the U.S. watched it, but I really enjoyed it. They had
Yeah.
Sadahara O
Like
was there. Like
that's cool.
he might be the best hitter of all time. We don't know. You can play all your games of how does Japan baseball compare to, but whatever. Like he is,
Yeah.
he's one of the best hitters of all time, and he's only ever played with Japan, and he was there, and just there was a lot of really cool stuff about like baseball starting in the 1870s in Japan and its progression, and I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I will say that as a like just high level baseball fan, it feels a little anticlimactic for this to have these like two games that count that no one really is able to watch, and they put these like marquee teams. This was Roki Sasaki's big league debut. Yoshinobu Yamamoto's back. It's Otani. There's a lot of marquee stuff that a lot of baseball fans really would have loved to have seen, and you could get up
Like
for it, but it's unreasonable to expect many people, especially on West Coast, to like get up for this stuff.
if the Cardinals were playing the Cubs or if the Cardinals were involved in the Tokyo series, I still don't think I would get up for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's also my morning thing. That's more I'm sure
Right.
there are people listening right now that are like, yeah, I would totally get up. It's not
Just
that
get
big
up
of a
for
deal.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, but I would
Eh,
not.
eh, Yeah. And, we do need to be, there are baseball fans all over the world, and this is trying to cater to them too. This was probably for some people like, oh my God, there's a baseball game during regular waking hours, so that was probably pretty cool for them. And I don't think there's really any other way to do it than this way, where they have such a gap in time between the starting of the regular season in this because of the travel and just what it does to it'd be pretty unfair to expect teams to travel to Japan right in the middle of the season. I mean, it seemingly has nearly killed Mookie Betts. I don't know if you caught any of
I
this.
saw him talking to Harold Reynolds the other day, and he looked gaunt. It's
So they talked about it on the
not good.
broadcast. He went from 173 pounds which is hilarious because like it's 173 pounds of pure muscle,
Yeah.
to 159
Ooh.
in like a week. So
Yeah,
he
that's not
lost
good.
like over 10% of his body weight in basically
That's
a week.
that's coming out of
Um,
both ends right there.
gross. And
Yikes.
so, um, it's not just that he got whatever the flu, or and then I'm assuming that was compounded by extreme jet lag and all that. Who knows if that might have happened if he was with or without the trip, but like it's a heavy thing to travel like that and try to be a peak athlete as well. So I don't know. I
I'd
like
just
this
like to
sort
note
of.
that I drove about 6 hours, competed at a high level, didn't lose a ton of weight. I showed up.
Yeah, dude, I'm just like so impressed by you right now. It's like I don't even know what to say. You're like the Mookie Betts of this podcast.
Thank you. You didn't have to say that, but I think it
I
was
didn't have to.
appropriate. Yeah.
And I meant every word of it. So I mean, again, like I'm happy to have like legit box scores to look at. The games they were fine. Dodgers are going to be good, and maybe the Cubs will be bad. I don't know. Matt Shaw made his debut. Have you seen his batting stance?
He looks like a little baby up there. It's very strange. I knew he was small, but he looks very weird.
Yeah, well, and he has his front foot facing like inward. It's really
Yeah, he's like
interesting.
tucked in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about the Cardinals. We are what a segue. All right, we had a little bit of a technical difficulty, and I didn't come back in the cleanest. But here we are anyway. We're
You don't
doing
want to
it.
retake? Just okay. We'll just go.
Nope, we're
All right.
just doing it. We're just doing it. So we are 1 week away from Cardinal opening day, at least from the release of this episode, and uh, there's still a lot of intrigue about what this final roster is going to look like. I will say it is certainly narrowed down a fair bit. This last week has been very clarifying, but there's still a few uh, battles to be won. I think a few tough decisions to be made. So we're gonna go through some of the news and I guess try to prognosticate a little bit about where we see this final lineup, this final roster landing before the season opener next Thursday. Ben, do you want to kind of start running us through some of the news from the last week?
I guess, Nate. I mean, if that's what you want me to do, I'll do it.
That is what I want you to do.
I think we got to talk about center field.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have Victor Scott 2 in the mix, Michael Ciani in the mix, and Lars Nootbaar. And I guess I'll pose the question to you: who is the starting center fielder on March 27th when the Cardinals open up against the Twins?
Man, it's so what I will say is I'm pretty convinced at this point it's not going to be Ciani.
Yes.
I think that one is done. I'm not saying he's not going to be on the roster. I still think there's a high likelihood that he is on the opening day roster, but I do not think he's going to be the starting center fielder. So then that leads us to Nootbaar and Scott. And kind of feels like, unfortunately, no matter how good Scott is, he's kind of a victim of the downwind, like the downstream effect of Arenado still being here and us wanting to have Donovan and Gorman and all these other guys still in the lineup, and also Lars Nootbaar. So you couldn't have asked Victor Scott to have a better spring, right?
No.
Like,
Right.
I don't know what else he needs to do to prove that he could be the starter, other than you could just say he needs to prove it for longer, and we know we want Nootbaar at the major league level. I'm starting to feel like it's going to be Newt opening day. But I kind of still want it to be Scott, but I know that how that impacts the rest of the lineup. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think just based on the way that I would expect the Cardinals to move, or just like historically move, they kind of look at these things in a way that I think is a little bit backwards, but I guess part of it makes sense. They are dead set on ensuring that their offense is not as feckless as it was last year.
Mm-hmm.
And that means putting out your best offensive lineup, seemingly, even if that means your defense and it's not really future focused.
Yeah.
So I think that means that Brendan Donovan is going to be starting in the outfield. And we talked about this about a month ago. If Brendan Donovan is in the outfield, that means Lars Nootbaar has to play center field. If Brendan Donovan is in the outfield, that also means that Nolan Gorman is going to be starting at second base, or at least taking the starts against right-handed pitching at second base. So I think we're kind of just being force-fed this. If Lars Nootbaar is starting in center, Brendan Donovan is starting in left, and Jordan Walker, which we already know has a guaranteed spot in right, then it makes no sense to have Victor Scott up in the big leagues being a bench bat, because he is clearly, I think, the future of center field for the Cardinals. And I think it's too bad because the Cardinals are a team that put a lot of weight on spring training competitions, and this is basically just throwing that out completely, which sucks for Victor Scott, who has put together, I think, a fantastic spring, no notes whatsoever. He's done everything you could possibly do. He's had the best spring of anybody on the team, I think. And he's going to be starting in AAA at center field. And I guess when Newt gets worn out, or if Jordan Walker gets sent down, or whatever, he'll be the first move up if anything happens to essentially anyone. Because you imagine if there's an injury on the infield, Brendan Donovan probably takes that over, opening up left field.
Yeah, which would then slides over. Yeah.
And if any injury happens in the outfield, Victor Scott will come up. So it seems like if anything happens, Victor Scott will come up and Michael Ciani will be the fourth outfielder. And I think that makes sense. I think that, like, if the Cardinals weren't doing this weird thing where they committed to this Walker starting in right field come hell or high water, I think there would probably be a little more flexibility. Like, why not put Lars in right and put Victor Scott out there and send Walker down? Walker has been injured, so he's missed a decent chunk of spring training. He hasn't performed, especially well. Why not send him down? We have trainers. We have people that could help him. Why not kind of push pause on this whole thing? I don't get the why it's guaranteed. Why are we forcing this to happen? Why are we forcing Koperniak down when he's another person who has done nothing but earn a spot on the big league roster? Do we think Jordan Walker can't develop in AAA?
Well, the argument, of course, would be that it's already been decided that he is big league ready. We did see him and as a rookie put up, I believe it was a 116 WRC plus. We know he's capable of doing it. And there's been a lot of shit thrown their way for the up-down nature of Jordan Walker. And they went into this saying he should be the starting right fielder. And to do the opposite of that would be another example of this inconsistent up-down thing that they are saying they want to stop.
But what, and this is me, I'm looking at the tea leaves a little bit, and I'm projecting, and I don't really know anything. Jordan Walker has had a bad spring. He struck out a lot. He's injured, so he missed probably 5-6 games, meaning he's just a little bit further behind. He's batting 136. He's gonna come up to the bigs, and maybe he'll just turn the switch on and start mashing balls and everything like that. But it just seems like we're kind of set up for Jordan Walker to have a really rough start to the season. And why not? Spring training stats don't matter. I believe that fully. But Koperniak's timing looks really good. Scott's timing looks really good.
I don't know. Did you hear the sweet crack of the bat on that double off of Walker 2 days ago?
That was good. I'm really just saying, like, this, if we're kind of looking at this season as a development year, why don't we just treat it like a development year and let everybody develop?
Hmm.
I don't know. The Cardinals drawing these hard lines and being inflexible is just annoying. And when you have all this new information from on the field play and the injury, why not adjust with the new information? I don't think like I think that there's a way that you can broach that topic and sound reasonable. I'm not sure if John Mozeliak is capable of that right now, but I think that there is a way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. I guess I've been full support of Walker in right field all year, kind of regardless of outcome, assuming that is followed by decisive action one way or another. Whether that's, which up to including like trading Jordan Walker if this is a bad year again. But at least we can say we did it. Same with Nolan Gorman. Um, and you may be putting a little too much weight into 40 spring at bats from guys like Koperniak and even Victor Scott, because there's a argument to be made for Victor Scott where you'd say he has made a batting stance change, he's made an approach change, and it has shown early results in spring. But let's let him do it down at the minor league level for an extended time to really lock in those gains. And then when there's a spot for him, he's more ready. Whereas Walker, we're just trying to get him
I
back to where he was, you know?
Yeah, I don't buy the lock in the gains thought process. They thought he was big league ready last year. They brought him up. And then on the Koperniak thing, he's been hitting for a while now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really think like what it comes down to is the original point that I made is that the roster doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's been
if
the
you want
case
to get the
for a
if you
while.
want to get the most out of the offense, you have to play Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar out of position,
Hmm.
which means we're going to have a bad defensive outfield, um, which might make for some really hard to watch games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I do think that to I guess circle back onto what the point of this conversation was, I do think it'll be Newt and starting in center on opening day and for the foreseeable future. Siani is your fourth outfielder to replace either Newt or Walker. I guess really what you would probably do, in the seventh inning of a game that you're winning after Walker gets his final at bat, is move Newt to right field and put Siani in center. And maybe even, well, no, I guess you wouldn't have another outfielder, so you'd have to
Yeah.
just leave Brendan Donovan out there and left, which isn't the worst thing in the world.
He's
But
fine. Yeah.
putting
He's
Brendan
fine out there.
Donovan at second base would definitely be an improvement, but you don't really have anyone else to take over in left field there. So yeah, that's probably what it'll be. And then, like I said, Victor Scott's the first person up if anyone gets hurt.
Yeah. I think it's going to be exactly that as well. Let's talk about the rotation. Um, some interesting. I don't know that it's necessarily any significant change from what was projected, but how are you seeing this rotation shake out?
Well, I think the thing that we need to talk about before we get into the rotation is the Cardinals have been flirting with the idea this week of starting with a 6-man rotation, either
Hmm.
for the season or to start the year. And I will say I like this idea.
I've been saying it all off season. It makes so much sense to me. We've got all these guys that we think are likely starter ready, but they're also mostly young, and most of them have not pitched enough innings to say, like, even if we said, okay, McGreevy, you are a starter day one, you've made the rotation. He probably isn't pitching all year out of the starting rotation just simply because of inning caps and just the way modern teams manage their young
Yeah.
starters. And so if you already know going into that your most of your starters, most of your young starters are not going to get to 180 innings or whatever you would maybe expect from a guy starting day one and hoping to go all season. Let's just bank it in right now every 6 day.
Yep. I think it
130 innings each guy, target it now. Maybe some go more, probably some go less.
you
Spread it
want
out. Why
to
not?
you want to do everything you can to keep Sonny Gray healthy for next year when you expect
Yeah.
to be competitive, assuming the Cardinals he doesn't, remove his no trade clause and request to be traded. You are actively marketing Eric Fetty and Steven Matz to the rest of the league. So
Hmm.
you are motivated to keep them healthy and effective. And maybe that the odds of that increase with an extra day's rest for both of those guys. The fewer innings you can give to Miles Michaelis, the better. So if you're having him pitch on an extra
Poor
day,
Miles.
I mean,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But that's a benefit in itself, is just giving him less innings. Palante, honestly, after that chat with Nick Pollock, I'm a little worried about
I
what
know.
Palante is going to be doing this year.
That was my
He's
big
had
takeaway. We So Nick was an incredible guest, and just what a mind for pitching. And boy, was he not hyped on Palante. I had kind of gone into that thinking, because of our discussion of Palante's underlying metrics from 2024. I thought maybe Nick was going to have a bit of a sunnier view on Palante and his future. And I mean, he was going off the results from spring and the reduction in some velocity
Yep.
and spin rate. So, it could end up being a spring training thing, and we can all be hyped about Palante here again pretty soon. But that was that was quite the
Just
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a little rain on the parade, but
Yeah.
that's okay, because I think it's good to have a sober look. And
Yeah.
spring training results don't matter. But for a guy who's like on the fence and trying to break
Hmm.
out, and he's got 13 innings and almost a 70 ERA in spring, and the velocity's down, it's really worrisome.
Yeah.
So obviously that's a huge question mark. And then I think what you were kind of leading this conversation with, let's say that sixth spot goes to Michael McGreevy, which I think makes a lot of sense. You put Libby in the bullpen, Michael McGreevy, maybe he gets a month or 2 months of starts, and whether his results are good or bad, swap those two guys out. Have
Hmm.
have Liberatore take over in the rotation, put McGreevy back down to the bullpen. You're managing innings, you're getting these guys big league experience, and hopefully you're evaluating to see if these guys are a part of the future or not. And you could reverse that order. I think you could even throw Palante. I don't think that the Cardinals will do this, but throw Palante as somebody who's a bullpen option who could be stretched out to a starter, and kind of get creative in how you use these guys, spread those innings. And if you have this six starter spot, you just have one more day a week that the
Hmm.
Cardinals can give a start to somebody who they see as the future of the team.
It also helps you ease someone like a Quinn Matthews and or a Tink Hence into the major league rotation without the added pressure of every 5 days. It just gives you a ton of flexibility. I mean, it's an additional slot, so you are increasing your flexibility significantly. And we're seeing smart teams around the league do this already. The starting pitchers is reducing workload year after year, and we are in this position where we have a ton of question marks. There's no shortage of innings, though. You got to get through 162 games. There's plenty of chances for all these guys to get a lot of innings. It's just how you shake it, how you integrate them in. I'm full on board for the six-man rotation. Also, assuming that Fetty is one way or another is almost certainly gone after July.
Yeah.
Matt's probably gone after July, and so unless the Cardinals are truly competing and have a chance at the Central or a wild card spot, which neither of us are projecting, but that would be a big wrench in this whole thing. A wrench would be happy if I certainly
Sure.
want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to watch
Absolutely.
winning baseball this year. I'm not going to be complaining if the Cardinals are winning, but let's assume that they're not. Now all of a sudden in August and September, you've got 4 spots open that you can have all these guys taking starts, even if they're only 3, 4, maybe 5 inning starts. That's laying the groundwork for the 2026 rotation, which will be, I think, largely filled with all these guys. It'll be
Yeah.
Gray probably, and 4 of these
Well,
guys is
we
my
we know for a
expectation.
fact, or it'd be very shocking if Fetty, Michaelis, and Mats are not all gone
Right.
after this year. If they even finish the year with the big
Yeah.
league club, I think that would be
Right.
surprising. At least all three of those guys.
Yeah.
So that being said, Gray, Fetty, Michaelis, Palante, Mats, projected starters. I
Yeah.
think if I had to choose today, I would give that sixth spot to Matthew Liberatore, just because I think He's got a little more big league experience. I think that he's had a night. Him and McGreevy has basically had the same spring.
Hmm.
There's a couple of things that you could cut up, but he has a little more big league experience. He's a year older. Maybe give him the first go around. I would be just as happy if you give it to McGreevy. It's really a coin flip for me. But I think
Yeah.
if I was the one making the decision, I would go Libby just out of preference.
I think I agree also just that the long time chase of his upside, there's a spot, he seems to be doing well. Let's try it again. Um, I could still see it being McGreevy though, because McGreevy was good out of the rotation last year, has
Yeah,
been good this spring. Like
has
he's
not walked a single person in spring.
right. So like you don't want to accidentally like he could again this is totally cardinal red lenses, 90th percentile outcome, but like he might just be a really good major league baseball starter already. And he all of his opportunities he's gotten so far he's been very good. So
Yeah,
maybe don't get in the way, sort of
yeah,
like a Quinn Matthews thing too. They threw him up every level of baseball last year. Just get out of his way, put him in front of the next challenge and see what happens. And we're going to see him at the big league level this year for sure. What has McGreevy done to not get this spot when there's one open other than Libertor is there? We like him. Everyone wants that to work out so bad for a number of reasons. So I suspect you're probably right that Libertor will get that chance, but part of me really wants it to be McGreevy for everything I just said.
well, hopefully they both.
Yeah.
Hopefully we are done with this year and they both have, I don't know, 8 to 12 starts in the big leagues, and maybe it's more than that. I think that would be even
I,
better, but
yeah.
that's what we should see.
I think it'll be more than that. At least I for McGree, I think it's going to be a quick trigger on Libertor back to the bullpen. I really feel like he's probably got one more real earnest chance at starting. And if it doesn't stick, I think he's bullpen just for the rest of his time with the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah,
Probably really good bullpen,
yeah,
talking
yeah,
setup, maybe future closer sort of thing. But I think that's where that's going.
yeah. Um, anyways, let's go 6-man rotation. I think decision made. Just do it. There's so many benefits of it.
Yeah.
I also think we need to talk about the Cardinals bench options. So
Hmm.
Sajasi, Kaperniak, Hellman have all been reassigned to minor league camp. We pretty much know. I think I can't think of a scenario where Pedro Pages is not on the bench
Right.
as a backup catcher. So then it comes down to the three other spots on the bench. I know I'm a broken record. I think Lucan Baker's performance this spring training means that he is on the bench.
Yeah.
And I think that he'll be getting starts at DH against lefties and might even be hopping in at first base when Wilson Contreras needs a day off. I don't need to sing his praises anymore, but all I want to say is the strikeout to walk ratio and the power. We have to see
Yeah.
what happens. I feel that very strongly, and I want nothing but for the big blonde behemoth to mash in the big
I know.
leagues.
Same. Same.
Outside of that, if I had to select, I mean, who I guess who the big question is, do you want Jose Fermin, or are you going upside with Jose Barrero? Who
Yeah.
who do you think should be that guy? And I'll note that, as I'm sure our listeners have seen, Fermin taking some reps in the outfield all of a sudden.
Hmm. Yeah. So I'm always an upside chase guy, especially in a development type year, whatever you want to call it. So my heart says Barrero. He's looked good this spring. There is a former top prospect type of guy, post hype sleeper. I mean, he was bad at the major league level last year. He really has never been successful at the major league level. So there's a lot of counter arguments against him, but there's we've seen it in spring. You can see the upside there. That said, and this comes from things C70 put together, but something that has to be considered here is that Barrero doesn't have any options And so if you bring him up, if you put him on the 40 man, he's playing. And if he's bad, you have to put him through waivers to get him back to Memphis. Whereas Fermin still has some options. I think I got all that right.
Fermin has one option remaining. As I'm looking at his player account right now, and Jose Barrero has 0 options remaining. So yes, that's a great point. And I hadn't read that from C70 yet. So I think that might make the decision right now.
It kind of does.
Flounders, you can still just bring up Fermin.
Yeah. But I think it kind of goes the other way. I think they probably start with Fermin, keep Barrero at Memphis, make sure Barrero is exceeding, and then call him up when you feel like, okay, he's ready. And then you can still option Fermin back down and you've got another chance with him. I don't know that they necessarily want to start the season with Barrero and have that sort of sword over him out of the gates, if that makes sense.
But how patient are you going to be with a 27-year-old post-hype prospect? I also think that you have the benefit of he is more seasoned in the outfield, and a right-handed outfielder is very beneficial to this team, at least the way that it's put together now. And maybe they believe in Jose Fermin's ability to play the outfield more than I do, which is totally makes sense. But we don't really have that guy. That guy doesn't really exist on this roster right now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think Fermin is going to be the opening day on the bench, but I personally think I would rather it be Barrero and go the route of we're going to run it until we know for sure it's bad, and then probably throw him on waivers. And I don't know if he's a huge risk to get grabbed off of waivers. I don't think there was like a crazy bidding war for him to be on the Cardinals in the first place, sort of thing.
Right.
But like you do run that risk, right? So.
And there are teams like the White Sox, there are teams like the Rockies that will just take a Barrero because they should.
Hey,
why not?
He can play baseball.
All right, so you are predicting Pages, Baker, Fermin, and then
Ciani.
Who? Oh, Ciani. I forgot about.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael Ciani. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many lefty outfielders on the team.
I mean, it's got to be. It's either in my opinion, it's either Ciani, Barrero, Pages, Baker, or Ciani, Fermin, Baker, Pages. And I think it's going to be Fermin, but I still kind of want it to be Barrero.
Yeah. Baker and Burley splitting time at DH and first base. It's basically going to be a carousel of Wilson Contreras, Alec Burleson, and Lucan Baker splitting first base and DH duties somehow, with Wilson obviously getting the lion's share of all of that.
And Gorman playing second, and every once in a while third if they're going to give Arenado a day off. Gorman's gotten a couple starts at third this spring, so they're keeping him warm over there, I guess, in case
is Gorman going to get the Jordan Walker treatment? We're just going to give him like 3 months of runway to see what we got?
That's what they're saying, and frankly, I hope so. To me, that's where that's that line of it's 1/2 development year, 1/2 go for it. When they're calling it a development year, I think that's what they mean is that they've locked in Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman as starting every day until you just simply can't. And I don't know what that level will be for people. I'm guessing Gorman's going to need to strike out at like a 40% plus rate or something like that. I kind of think Walker is just there every day, no matter what, even if he's batting 100. I think it's just going to go. But Gorman, I imagine there's some degree of a ripcord at some point for him. Because we know when Gorman is not good. I mean, there's just like zero value produced. You know what I mean? He's just striking out all the time. And so that's my expectation.
Yeah. Something you say often is that prospects do not develop linearly. In a linear fashion.
In a linear fashion. There you go.
Apparently I can say that. I'm really hoping that we are in a valley for Gorman and the Gormania hits an all-time high this year. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I do think that, trying to be positive, if this year works if the Cardinals can have power bats on the right and left side with some nice control on them in Gorman and Walker, this team looks really fun for 26.
Oh yeah.
If we play 26. But
Oh, that's a whole other thing. But yeah,
yeah,
100%. I mean, you can like I think this we've been talking about this all off season, but you can see what a really good or at least competitive 2026 St. Louis Cardinals looks like. The
yeah,
bones are all there. I mean, this team won 83 games last year, and I know that that was partly some luck and some variance that went in the Cardinals' favor, inverse of the year before. But at the end of the day, they did it. And most of the people, the only real changes that happened between last year and this year is the removal of some players that really didn't contribute to those 83 wins, right?
yeah.
So it doesn't, you can see like, okay, a healthy and productive Newt Bar, a healthy and productive Walker, a Gorman that's returned to their former, level of productivity, 650 at bats of Wilson Contreras, uh, Brendan Donovan putting up 4 WAR just quietly. All that adds up. And then Quinn Matthews, Tink Hence, Michael McGreevy, all the pieces are there for a good team if they do it. We're banking on a lot of good outcomes here, though. And odds are, frankly, odds are that both Gorman and Walker won't be like all-star level players, right? Or
Yeah.
even odds are one of them won't even be in the majors in the next couple of years. I hope that's not true, but just the way, baseball's hard. And also, the Cardinals have JJ Weatherholt knocking down the door, ready to take Nolan Gorman's job. That's a rough one to have sitting behind you in the line. You know what I mean? So they're going to be incentivized to have JJ Weatherholt in the major league roster here soon.
Victor Scott just hit another home run of Cole Irvin in the spring training game that's happening while we are
The leg
recording.
kick is good.
That's your AAA starting center fielder.
Well, we've said it before. Good teams have great players ready to go when people get hurt.
Except for this is not a good team. All right, let's keep going. A couple of shout outs to players. Quinn Matthews at the spring breakout game, 3 scoreless innings, 3 strikeouts, looked great.
Yeah.
This kid
Those are fun.
they should keep doing that. It's good.
Yeah.
But Quinn Matthews, I think, is an unstoppable force. He will be in the big league soon. And I can't wait to see what he does against major league pitching. I'm really hoping we can make some early season trades or teams are going to be reaching for Cardinals veteran starting pitchers earlier in the season so that we can get more innings to these guys that we want to see. Quinn Matthews being, I think right after McGreevy and Liberatore as far as the pecking order is concerned.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I think we do this like every other episode at this point, but I just wanted to talk about Ivan Herrera's spring. He has a 190 WRC plus. He has a 471 on base percentage. He's got a homer. I think he looks good behind the plate. I think I've been seeing some fantasy bloggers post about it. I think that, not that we weren't on the hype train. He put up a 127 WRC. He was the best hitter on the team for good chunks of last year.
Yeah.
So I think breakout might not even be a fair way to frame it because maybe he already did breakout and we're just living in that. But I think Ivan Herrera is going to have a really nice year. He looks really good. He's kind of unflappable. He takes great at bats all of the time. And I'm not trying, I'm not overreacting to 34 plate appearances in spring training, but that in accompaniment with his last year and his cup of coffee in 23, just all looking really good for old Ivan Herrera.
Well, it's one of the things the Cardinals have done well this offseason. They made a decision that Ivan Herrera is the starting catcher. And that meant they had to move their expensive veteran catcher to first base in order to do it. And I don't know that every team would have done that. Wilson Contreras is a perfectly reasonable catcher. He's got a killer arm, a better arm than Herrera. And I think a lot of teams would just say, well, they would do what the Cardinals did with Yachty forever, which is just like, well, we'll just keep developing these catchers and trading them, or we'll see what happens. Someone gets hurt, you know. But instead, they've made the decision to push Contreras over to first and install Herrera as the starter and have Pais backing him up. Full throated endorsement of that decision. I think it's going to work on both sides. Contreras is going to be a good first baseman, and Herrera doesn't have to deal with the only thing that was a problem for him last year was that no matter how good he was always like the backup. I mean, you know how I feel about a team having three catchers. I'm frankly a little worried that we're not going to have three or four catchers on the team this year. Well, I guess, you know, Contreras is still there, so we still kind of have three catchers. But anyway,
Donnie could catch in a pinch.
he talked about that at winter warm up, hoping to not have to do that. You know, that like he hope it doesn't come to. I mean, we're in a pretty rough spot if Donnie's suiting up in the middle of a game because you got to imagine that Contreras is the third choice at this point.
I would hope so.
He's the backup. So Donnie's fourth in line. If maybe some sort of catcher based virus has gone through the dugout.
I think there's a real chance that we are looking at the end of 2025 and that Ivan Herrera is the second or third best offensive catcher in the National League. Putting him behind maybe Contreras and Will Smith.
Yeah, but Will Smith he's been declining, year over year. It's hard to be a catcher and be good for a long time. So, I mean, he's still great, but he has been declining. I could see Herrera surpassing him. But a similar mold though, right? High average for a catcher, going to have some pop, probably not, not going to pop more than 25 or anything like that, but could hit 20 if everything goes exactly right. I'm not expecting that this year from Herrera, but 280, 290 batting average, 15.
I'm looking at his StatCast right now. He had his high exit velo last year was 112. I mean, that's big boy territory. So if he could just kind of trend that direction a little bit more and keep the contact up. I mean, you just see it where he could really become a force, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, well, it's we say you can see the bones of a future good Cardinal team. I didn't list him when I just ran through the bones.
You keep talking about bones, creep. Nate,
it's only March. What?
Nathan.
Benjamin.
We've been recording for like 3 hours, or I don't know how long this episode is right now.
Something like that.
And we haven't mentioned the biggest news of the week.
It happened. It finally happened.
The Cardinals have signed somebody to a major league contract. I mean, kind of, sort of. It's $2 million. It's 1 year. His name is Phil Maton, and he's your newest St. Louis Cardinal. How do you feel about this move?
Put it on the board. Mozeliak, take a rest. All right, you've done it. You've done enough. Get your little. I feel like when Mozeliak goes to bed, he's definitely wearing like the Ebenezer Scrooge, like full gown with the hat. I feel like
you've characterized him as like this before. I think that you've said this in the past, and so obviously you really believe it.
I do. Don't you think he sleeps in a sleeping gown with a hat with a little ball on the end of it?
I imagine he hunk shoes, like
me. A little feather going up and down over his mouth. Anyway, take a rest, Mozeliak. You've earned it. You put a capstone on you this off season.
That's my Pobo.
Yep. I actually like the signing. Phil made. Mentioned it. I think we mentioned him earlier in the offseason of like, why don't they go and get Phil Maton? So, more depth for the bullpen. He's been good in the past, low cost. We continue to say we like how the Cardinals have built their bullpen. I think he fits right in, gives you more insurance. If he's really good, maybe a really good trade candidate. Might also just be really bad and whatever. Like, you took a shot at him.
Yeah, I think that it reeks trade candidate. The Cardinals have a lot of lefties in their bullpen. This is a guy that's got a history of being successful. He had a funny year last year with the Rays, 35 innings. He was fine, not good. That he moves to the Mets at the halfway point, throws about 30 more innings, and everything looks great. We're talking a sub 3 FIP, a 9.5 K per nine. His walks are cut down dramatically. It's the life of a reliever. He'll come in here. I am sure that he will be effective. He has been effective. He's a spin rate guy. You trade him, and if you get anything for him at the halfway point, or if he just kind of keeps your team rolling, a $2 million deal, it cannot be bad. So I
They
think
always say
that,
there's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal, and this is a $2 million 1 year deal. But yeah, I think it's fine.
Perfect. Yep. Oh yeah, we should also note that they have optioned Graceffo, Munoz, and O'Brien. I think not shocking to see any of that. And the Cardinals made another interesting move, which was a mid-camp edition of a non-roster invitee, Yohel Pozo. Have you seen this guy? Have you read about this guy?
Have you heard about this guy? Only a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about him?
I just love his batted ball profile and everything that he brings to the team. He is a 27-year-old, kind of unathletic looking catcher. He has been with the Rangers and with the A's in the minor leagues for quite a while. What I find really interesting about him is that he hits the ball pretty hard, and he hits the ball extremely often.
Mm-hmm.
Last year in AAA, in 90 games played, he had a less than 2% walk rate and a less than 9% K rate, meaning that he was basically swinging and making contact all of the time. He also had
89% of the time he's putting the ball in play, basically.
Putting the ball in play constantly. But he also had 15 home runs, a 214 ISO, and a 538 slugging percentage. So he is swinging hard. He is making contact, and he's a fine defensive catcher. It's like a Williams Astudillo type line. You just do not see these kinds of players ever. And the fact that he has some power behind it, I'm not saying like this is the catcher of the future, but the Cardinals picked up a really weird baseball player, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I don't know what his path to playing time is right now, right? He's going to have to go into the minors and mash and force his way up. But you do love that profile. That's everyone loved Astudillo. I think partially also because of his overall just everything, but
yes, his turtle shape,
the Tortuga. But sure, take a flyer on this guy. In a world where everyone is striking out all the time, it's fun to see someone who has the opposite approach.
Yeah, I don't expect us to see him unless things go really bad. Like Jimmy Crooks is probably the first person up, but a fun signing. Like I said, unique player.
Yeah, or like a DH sort of thing where he's just hitting so well that they're like, all right, we got to get this guy up here, and he takes some at bats at DH, but.
I would love to watch him against Major League pitching just to see how the experiment unfolds. All right, final piece of Cardinals news. The Cardinals have traded Bailey Horn, left-handed reliever who was with the Cardinals for a moment, to the Detroit Tigers for cash consideration. So he is gone. Good luck in Detroit, Bailey.
Yeah, great name, great baseball name, Bailey Horn. You got to love cash considerations coming back to the team.
Oh, hell yeah.
I'm big believer in him too. So, pretty fair trade, I think.
Oh, I get it. All right. That's all I got for Cardinals news, Nady.
All right. We're going to continue our coverage. We're going to finish our coverage of the NL Central by talking about the Chicago Cubs. But before the 0-2 Chicago Cubs. But before we do that, we want to remind everyone that this show is supported by listeners on patreon.com. If you want to support the creation of this show and the work that we do to bring it to you every single week. 161 episodes now. We've done it without missing a beat. Assuming this one comes out on time. If you want to support that and all that effort, go to patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. We have a lot of different perks and things, but subscribers of any level get access to our private Discord server. It's the Bird Scored. Shout out to the Bird Scored. Again, incredibly active right now. Just been a really fun way to talk about Cardinal news and the games and whatnot, and actually talk to other real humans about it and not just like spit something out onto a social media platform and hope you get likes or whatever. You can actually like talk to us and other listeners. So check it out, patreon.com/talking about birds. Also leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. It really does help. And also tell your friends. Opening day, baby. Now's the time to get into the podcast. Ben, where else can people find us?
Yeah, you can find us on all the social medias. We're on Blue Sky, we're on Instagram, we got a TikTok, all that crap. You can find us there at Talking About Birds. This show is available on Spotify and YouTube. If you're one of those people, we're putting up videos of the podcast now. So if you want to look at us while we're talking, you have that option, I guess, if you want to do that.
If you want to see why Ben's audio kind of reduced a little bit ago, and because he was bending over and scratching his back while still trying to talk, so you can see that. You can see that in real life.
It's an interesting thing to say. You can find all of the podcast information. You could find T-shirts if you want to get a new Cardinals T-shirt that doesn't say Cardinals on it for the start of the season. You can find all of that at talkingaboutbirds.com. Of course, you can email us thoughts and questions, concerns, threats, anything you have to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. And you can call us and leave a voicemail or send a text message to 848-48-BIRDS. That's 848-482-4737.
And as we said, as you saw at the beginning, open to opening bits. Text them. If you can make fun of Ben, that's great. If not, that's great too. They don't have to be good. So
wow. Okay. And they often aren't. So don't feel any pressure.
All right, Hambone. The Chicago Cubs. They are the projected, at least before this little Tokyo series, they were the team projected to win the NL Central. The only team projected to have a winning record on Fangraphs from the NL Central, but not by much. Ben, can you give us their projection, and then let's start talking about what to expect from the Cubs in 2025?
Yeah, Fangraphs is putting them at 83.5 and 78.5 wins. I mean, that's really 500 baseball, if you ask me. And I think that this is a team that is really banking on a lot of things going right. I do think that the Cubs have made some moves that make a lot of sense. And, I think we have to start this conversation by detailing Kyle Tucker. The Cubs go out and they trade for a top, I don't know, Nate, 5 player in baseball?
I think I would say top 10 because your top 5 gets crowded real quick. It is a little bit
position player.
Yeah, it's a little bit pick your flavor on that because Kyle Tucker is the guy who he does everything in baseball very, very well, but doesn't necessarily do any one of them at a truly elite level, but every team should want a Kyle Tucker on it. And I think he is top 10, you're picking Ohtani's and Vlad's and well, maybe not Vlad, but Soto and probably like a Bobby Witt, there's enough guys where I don't think you put him top 5, but top 10 for sure.
He was dealing with a shin contusion last year, which cut his season in half. And I'm saying be
happened
afraid
against
of
the
Kyle
Cardinals.
Tucker. This guy is sure, yeah. It definitely
it was against the Cardinals. He fouled a ball off the top of his shin, and it looked like he tried to take the at bat, and he tried to stay in. It was a really extended injury break in the game. Took him out, and he ended up missing like half the season from that.
I appreciate that extra context, Nate. Thank you.
Proceed, Governor.
He's in a walk year.
Yeah.
And I think he is going to be one of those guys. He's trying to get $500 million. I think he is going to be one of those guys that gets it. I think he's going to have a ridiculous year. I think he is going to be the best player in the National League Central. I think he is going to be awesome. I know you love Ellie De La Cruz, Nate, and he has potential, but I think Kyle Tucker is going to have a very, very nice year in Wrigley this year. And that's too bad for the Cardinals, but it also means that he probably won't be a Cub going forward. So we have that to look forward to.
Unless they were saving all their money from not spending any money this offseason to try to extend him, but he has already said he's going to free agency. So it'll be like they have to bid with everyone else for him. And yeah, I do. I'm a big Ellie fan, but if I were building a team right now, I'm putting Kyle Tucker on it before I'm putting Ellie on it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
If you
don't
want to
know that
win
it's
this year, it
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah.
Um,
Um,
outside of
yeah,
that,
I think outside of Soto, maybe the biggest single like improvement a team made this offseason was the Cubs acquiring Kyle Tucker. Like it's that big of a deal, I think.
yeah, they did have to trade away a good third baseman to get him,
Yeah.
and another player. But that also means that they now have room for their number one prospect. We talked about him a little bit already, Matt Shaw. So if you're a Matt Shaw believer, I think getting rid of Isaac Paredes for Kyle Tucker, this all makes a lot of sense. But it is a big question mark, and they
Mhm.
don't really have anyone else to play third base. So they are fully in on the Matt Shaw business, and him having a good rookie year. And I guess that'll be a huge storyline. I think he'll play defense fine, but can he hit with that weird little wound up stance that he has and kind of a smaller guy?
Yeah.
Can he be that guy to kind of complement Michael Bush and Tucker and Seiya Suzuki and Ian Happ? Kind of like what I was getting at. I see there's a scenario where the Cubs have a nice offense,
Hmm.
but you're counting on Ian Happ and Seiya Suzuki and Matt Shaw and Dansby Swanson, who's getting older, to really put together nice years. Um, I just I don't know if I'd put a lot of money on all that working out for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a lot of you're expecting these guys who are getting older to continue exactly the performance they had done in the past. I am a pretty big believer in Seiya Suzuki. He was really coming on in the second half last year too, after dealing with some injury. So I think he's going to be pretty good. Like I do think this is going to be a good offense. I think their bigger issue is ultimately going to be pitching, though. I also think Imanaga is very, very good, and we saw some of it in the Tokyo
Yeah.
game. Like there's a reason they're projected to be the best team in the NL Central, and I do think that that is probably the most likely outcome. But I think we none of us will be that surprised if they end up winning 83 games, also, which is
Yeah.
their projection from Fangraphs.
I think it really comes down to what is Tucker going to be that guy, and what is Pete Crow Armstrong going to do with a full season in the big
Have,
leagues?
have you seen his spring?
He's had a very nice spring. I think there is no question that he's going to be a great base runner and a great
Hmm.
defensive outfielder. What I will say, so he's put up a 275 WRC plus in 10 games in spring training.
Hmm.
He has yet to take a walk, and he has
Hmm.
struck out about 25% of the time. But he's batting 519. So, maybe you don't need to walk when you're batting 519. Maybe walks are overrated when you're that good.
Yeah.
But I really think that this guy is the biggest X factor, the biggest what
Hmm.
if. This is how the Cubs get to the promised land, is through PCA being a beast this year and kind of causing havoc on the bases, getting on base enough to cause havoc. And then Kyle Tucker kind of driving him in, or the inverse of that, depending on how their lineup shakes out. But
Yeah.
I think he's the biggest point of emphasis for the Cubbies doing anything this year.
Yeah, and arguably like the Cubs season will likely be defined to some degree between PCA and Matt Shaw, and if they can add enough to support Suzuki, Tucker, Bush, those guys.
Yeah.
Because if PCA or Shaw become sort of black holes in that lineup gets pretty thin pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think yeah, the same could be said about their starting rotation. Pretty much everybody coming back. They do have a prospect who I expect to impact their starting rotation at some point this year in Kevin Alcantara.
Hmm.
Um, but outside of that, they have made a lot of changes to their bullpen this year, and I think this might be the biggest change in the team that we've seen over the last couple of years and going forward. They've added Ryan Presley, who is projected to be their closer going forward. Ryan Brazier, who has had some really high points when he is healthy. They've also brought in Caleb Thielbar, Eli Morgan, and Colin Ray to this staff. So it is basically a full sail change on this side of the team, and I think Ryan Presley's 36 years old, but he's been a solid closer for a while. And all those other guys are, they have histories of success. If they can put it together, I think it takes a lot of pressure off of this kind of crappy rotation, or this rotation that I don't necessarily love, and just makes that team all that better.
Yeah. A moment ago, you said Kevin Alcantara. He's an outfield prospect. Is there
Uh,
a
oh,
rotation prospect?
who is the who's their? I'm getting somebody mixed up. Who is their starting pitching prospect that people are excited about? Is it Cade Thornton? I don't remember. I don't
Yeah.
watch these Cubbies. Oh yeah, Cade Thornton. Okay, I
Okay.
apologize. Cade Thornton. He is a starting pitching prospect. My cat just jumped on my lap and scared me. Um,
Ooh.
anyways, so that would be the first person who is called up. Yeah, Kevin Alcantara. He's a speedy outfielding prospect. So sorry about that.
Yeah. Speaking of cats, have you watched Flow?
No, it is on my list though. I have as a proud father of a little black kitty, I would like to watch it with my son.
Highly recommend. We watched it the other day. It won Best Animated Feature at the Academy Awards. You know, we love talking about the Oscars on this show. And came out of Latvia. Absolutely loved it. 5 stars. Like, fantastic film. So
We love it.
we love it, don't we, folks? Okay, so what do you got, Ben? Cubs, kind of like a lot of the teams in the NL Central. You can see it. You see what a good Cubs team looks like, but they have a lot of question marks, just like the Reds, just like the Cardinals, the Pirates, the Brewers. It's wide open. Are the Cubs beating that projection and winning the Central, or are they under it?
Like I said, I think if Kyle Tucker is that dude and PCA, it breaks out, they have the potential to be the best team. I think that I don't want to put a lot of money on them though. They're really counting a lot. Like Imanaga has to be good, and healthy. Justin Steele has to be relevant this year. Um, I would say that if I had to put money on it right now, I think that they will eclipse 83 wins. Um, but as we've talked about, I could really see the Brewers outpacing them. I could really see the Reds outpacing them. I could see this whole season going poorly. But I think before the games, only 2 games have been played. But before the rest of the games are played, I would say I would probably take them to win the Central right now and beat 83.5 wins.
Yeah, I agree. I think they will be over, but I hope not.
Yeah,
Stupid Cubs. All right,
stupid Cubbies.
got a little bit of league news. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, a couple of transactions. The Rangers have signed Patrick Corbin, just as kind of a depth piece deal. The Braves have brought back in Craig Kimbrell on a minor league deal. I'm really hoping that he gets with the team and maybe even steals a couple of saves away from Rafael Iglesias just for narratives and that kind of thing. I think that would be a lot of fun. And Royce Lewis is going to begin the season on the IL, Nathan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a big fan of Royce Lewis. I think it's like Byron Buxton all over again, right? You're just like
Yeah.
these guys that are so talented. And what did he hit, like 4 grand slams in 1 week last year or the year before? Like,
Yeah.
just true talent. But you know, he's like you. He can't keep his legs healthy. He's walking around stress fractures and hamstring pulls and stuff like that. So really feel for the guy. They say that he's saying this one isn't as bad. Probably gonna miss a month. But
Man,
it's just another one.
if he ever gets 150 games played, he could win an MVP. Like
For sure.
there's just so much to love.
There's something with the Twins and these guys. Like, they can
Yeah.
find these this like elite talent that just can't stay healthy.
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit last week, but the Rays situation in Florida gets more and more dire. The Rays have officially pulled out of the ballpark project, leaving their future extremely uncertain. Essentially, there was a proposed stadium that looked really nice and fancy in a new part of town. The owner basically said that he's not doing that, no interest in doing that. I think it seems very likely that he is going to be politely forced out of baseball, and the Rays will be up for sale here very soon. But, the bad situation gets worse, and it seems like baseball and Manfred are actually trying to flex some of their powers, whatever those powers are, or maybe just pressure, to maybe get a new owner and get one of the bad owners out, which would be
Yeah.
a win for the sport. But I do think baseball is clearly focused on keeping a team in that part
Mhm.
of the country.
Yeah. I've heard Orlando too, like maybe slide up a little bit and
Yeah.
get there, which would make some sense and kind of. I'm sure Tampa Bay people wouldn't say that's still with us, but at least you're still is about as close as you can get while not being Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm glad to see the league like coming together to get rid of a bad owner. I think it's taken way too long, but at least it's happening. So hopefully this gets resolved and the Rays get get the support that they deserve.
Yeah. And more, it just feels like because of the way they're behaving here, they're just letting John Fisher be the pariah, and all of MLB clearly wants a team in Vegas.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of letting Fisher take all the lumps, and they're handling this in such a different way. But I guess we'll see how it all plays out. All right, that's all I got for league news this week.
All right, Hambone, we're gonna wrap up this episode. I got a game for you. All right, so shout out to Rob Nunn who sent us in an article. This is peak talking about birds content. Okay, so Rob plugged in, looking out for the good stuff. Thank you for sending this to us. Ben, I have an article in front of me. The name of the
Okay.
article, the headline is "The Sesame Street Character That Best Represents Every MLB Team."
Okay.
Okay, you a Sesame Street guy?
Sure. Snuffleupagus, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. This is from RIYL magazine. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say a Sesame Street character. We're just gonna do a few of these. I'm gonna
Okay.
say a Sesame Street character, and you have to tell me what team that is. You know that it's best associated with. Okay.
I don't like Rob right now. I don't like this. I hate it. I'm mad that he found this. I'm mad that he shared it with you. I'm mad that this is a thing.
Well, and for that we are grateful. So, all right, let's start with
Okay.
the big man himself, Kermit the Frog. What team is best? Does Kermit best represent? They all have little
Insane
blurbs
question.
too.
What team is Kermit the Frog? Okay, so let's see. He's the leader. He's popular. He can sing. He's got a beautiful girlfriend.
Uh-huh. Watch it, Frog.
What? But yeah, he's kind of like is he a lovable? No, I feel like I was gonna say he's a lovable loser, but he kind of wins, right? Like he might start down on his luck, but he usually comes through. But he's down to earth, I guess. I don't know. Kermit the Frog is the San Diego Padres.
It's the New York Yankees, Hambone.
See,
Always
that's
important. Always important, even when
oh.
they're barely on screen. The past looms large for both the Muppets and the club. The anchor of season 1 of Sesame Street, and only seen twice since season 40. There you go. I won't read the whole thing, but Kermit the Frog. How about Big Bird?
I hate this. I hate this. Okay, Big Bird. He's a big bird. You know who else is a big bird? The St. Louis Cardinals. That's a big bird. It looms large. Done. That's my answer.
Hambone, you got one. Put it on the board. Thought this would be a 0. They say the second most important franchise in the MLB behind the Yankees.
So clear.
Always
This
in
article is
contention.
suspect. The person can't even write.
I suspect that this may be AI generated.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
All right. How about Elmo?
Elmo. Childlike, weird, likes to be tickled, kind of creepy. Who do I think very popular though? The Dodgers. I'll go with the Dodgers just based on popularity.
Ben, you are 2 for 3. Elmo is the Dodgers.
That's
The team with the
stupid.
most money, marquee players, attention, etc. You say you hate Elmo / the Dodgers, but how can you love Sesame Street / MLB if you hate the best part?
Wow.
Wow. Okay, how about Ernie?
Ernie. I feel like he is so nondescript. Um, hmm. Ernie, good sweater.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good friend. Um, Ernie, good sweater, good friend. I'm thinking of somebody maybe a team that is right down the middle. Doesn't not really offensive or anything like. Let's go with the Kansas City Royals.
This one is going to be the San Francisco Giants.
I don't. Yeah, it doesn't. Is that
The
because
more
he's
the more beloved partner of Bert, the Giants have been way better the last 2 decades. So, yeah.
that
So
makes no sense.
let's do Bert. Who do you think Bert is?
So if well, this would based on what you just said makes me think that Bert is the A's, but Oscar the Grouch should be the A's. But just based on the context clues, I'm going to say that Bert is the A's.
You got it. Yeah.
That's stupid.
I like
That's
that
stupid.
you're so into this though. Now you're pitching your own. Well, clearly Oscar the Grouch is the A's.
He's green and garbage. That is the A's.
All right. Well, let's end this with one last one. Who does this have as Oscar the Grouch?
Oscar the Grouch. Well, green, garbage, unhappy. Could be the White Sox. They're garbage. Could be my Colorado Rockies. They're also garbage, but not green. They do have a green alternate uniform. Garbage, green, grouchy. I'll go with the White Sox. Might as well.
No, it is your New York Mets.
Why?
Hates everything. Hasn't won the big one in a long time. Surrounded by much happier clubs.
What
But
is Oscar the Grouch winning or losing? What
Yeah.
is it? Life?
Yeah, I think being on the street.
I'm unhappy with this.
This is peak content right here. All right, and that's going to. I mean, you got 3 or 4 of them, so
Sure.
no
Yeah,
matter how
great.
much you hate this, maybe you see yourself a little bit in this article.
Okay.
You're being a real Oscar the Grouch.
All right.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you as always for listening. Baseball is back. There are box scores that you can look at of Major League Baseball players. And next week, we will have our episode out on opening day, where we will preview the opening day lineup and really dig into what the Cardinals should be expecting in the series that will be coming up. So super excited to bring it to you. As always, if you have anything for the show, talkingaboutbirds.com, all sorts of different ways to reach out to us. And with that, until next week, go Cardinals.
Free Victor Scott.
And Luke and Baker.
He's free.